If you've ever seen a performance of the opera Carmen, you probably have a very specific image in your mind. You likely see a woman who is vibrant, perhaps a bit playful, and ultimately a tragic figure of passion. But the book that inspired it, Prosper Mérimée's novella Carmen, is a much colder, sharper, and more unsettling experience. It isn't just a story of a doomed romance, it's a series of observations by a detached academic narrator who finds himself caught between the laws of civilization and the ancient unwritten codes of the wilder parts of Spain. The story begins in 1830 with an unnamed narrator, an archaeologist traveling through Andalusia. He isn't a hero, he's a man of science, an observer. His journey brings him to a mountain spring where he encounters a man named Don José Navarro. This man is a stranger, armed and sullen, and he carries an air of danger that makes the narrator uneasy. Despite this, the narrator follows the local laws of hospitality, sharing his food and cigars with the stranger. This moment is crucial because it sets the stage for the moral tension that runs through the entire book. The narrator's guide, a man named Antonio, sees the stranger as a bounty to be claimed, but the narrator chooses to warn the man instead, allowing him to escape into the night. This choice creates a rift between the formal laws of the state and the personal code of honor that governs these mountain regions. Later, while in Córdoba, the narrator has a chance encounter with a woman who will haunt the narrative, Carmen. She is a Romani woman, striking and intense, and the narrator finds himself caught in her orbit. After a brief, charged flirtation, he visits her home, where she performs a card reading. The atmosphere is heavy with a sense of fate, a feeling that the characters are being pulled towards something inevitable. The scene is suddenly and violently interrupted by Don José, and in the ensuing chaos, the narrator's watch is stolen. The encounter is brief, but leaves a lasting impression of volatility and sudden, inexplicable violence. Months later, the narrator's path crosses with Don José again, but the man is unrecognizable. He is no longer a stranger in the mountains, but a nobleman facing execution for a string of murders. Before he dies, a haunted and broken Don José asks the narrator for one last favor. He wants a silver medal delivered to a mysterious woman, and he asks that the narrator tell her he is dead, but to leave out the specific, sordid details of how he met his end. It is through this encounter that we get to the heart of the book, Don José's own account of his life. This is where the story shifts from the narrator's observations to a first-person confession. We learn that José was once a man of order, a disciplined Basque soldier serving in Sevilla. His life changed the moment he met Carmen, a worker in a tobacco factory. Carmen was not a woman who played by anyone's rules. After she attacked a co-worker with a knife, José was tasked with her arrest. But instead of performing his duty, he used his authority to help her escape. That single act of defiance was the beginning of his undoing. He abandoned his career, his reputation, and his social standing to become a brigand, living a life of crime alongside her. As their relationship progresses, we see the fundamental clash that drives the tragedy. José does not just love Carmen, he wants to possess her. To him, love is something that requires stability, protection, and ultimately control. He wants to own her heart and her presence. But Carmen's entire existence is built on a refusal to be owned. To her, freedom is the only thing of value, and it is a freedom that cannot be negotiated or shared. She doesn't want to protect her, she wants to be left to her own devices, even if those devices lead to danger or poverty. The tension reaches a breaking point when José realizes that Carmen's heart is not his to keep. He sees her with another man at a bullfight, and the jealousy that takes hold of him is not just romantic, but existential. They flee to a remote inn where Carmen performs a ritual with melted lead to glimpse her future. It is a scene steeped in the idea of determinism, the belief that our lives are already written and we are merely playing out a script. José, desperate and losing his grip on reality, begs her to flee with him to America to start a new life where they can be free from the shadows of their past. But Carmen refuses. She tells him plainly that she would rather die than live under the thumb of any man. Driven to a murderous frenzy by her indifference and her refusal to submit, José takes her to a lonely gorge. There, in a moment of pure, terrifying passion, he stabs her to death. He doesn't kill her out of hatred, but out of a desperate, twisted attempt to keep her in a state where she can no longer belong to anyone else. After the murder, a broken man, José buries her with a ring and a cross, then surrenders himself to the authorities, forever haunted by the memory of her final, defiant gaze. The book doesn't end with the death of the lovers, though. The narrator returns to his role as an observer, providing an ethnographic study of the Romani people. He details their customs, their perceived magic, and their linguistic roots. This part of the book is a product of its time, reflecting the 19th century tendency to other people, to frame certain cultures as exotic, mysterious, and fundamentally different from the civilized world. By doing this, Mérimée frames the tragedy of Carmen and José not just as a personal failure, but as the inevitable collision of two different worlds that cannot coexist. When we look back at the story, several themes emerge that make it more than just a tale of passion. The most central is the conflict between possession and autonomy. We see how José's version of love is actually a form of imprisonment. He thinks he is saving her, but he is really trying to domesticate her. Carmen, on the other hand, is a character who values her own agency above life itself. In many ways, she is a modern figure, someone who refuses to be categorized or controlled by the men or the social structures around her. There is also the heavy presence of fate. The card readings, the omens, and the rituals all suggest that these characters are trapped. It's as if the universe has already decided that José and Carmen must collide and then shatter. This sense of inevitability makes the violence feel less like a choice and more like a natural disaster. It is also worth noting how much this book differs from the famous opera by Georges Bizet. If you've only seen the opera, you might find the book quite shocking. The opera's Carmen is often portrayed as a more sympathetic, almost seductive figure, and the character of Escamillo, the bullfighter, is a major romantic rival who drives much of the plot. In Mérimée's novella, the story is much leaner and much darker. The character of Escamillo is barely a presence, and Carmen herself is described in much more predatory, almost animalistic terms. The opera softens the edges of the story to make it more palatable for the stage, turning a gritty tale of obsession and social collapse into a grand melodic tragedy. Ultimately, Carmen is a study of what happens when the rigid structures of society meet a force of nature that refuses to be contained. José tries to bring Carmen into his world of order and law, but he only succeeds in destroying both himself and her. The book leaves us with a haunting image of the cost of absolute freedom and the destructive power of a love that refuses to let go.